Warhammer 40k versus Star Wars, Episode 3. Told you guys I wasn't going to do a long introduction. I'm not. Here we go. Hit the bright button. By the way, I said I wasn't going to do a long intro. I'm not, but I just got to comment on this. I've seen some comments in the first two episodes of this asking when does this, this seems kind of like this, it seems kind of boring, stuff like that. You have to build the world of something like this. You can't just drop it. You can't just drop straight into action. You're not going to have that. Things are going to have to be established. And he's done a bang-up job of it so far. Shutting up, rant off, here we go. That's cool. That was pretty cool.
What is wrong with the ship? 8th Captain Nexus Lente yelled over the sounding alarms and creaking rumbling of the battle barge, Master of Light. It sounded as if the whole vessel was being beaten by an endless rain of power fists, and while Chapter Master Orion remained composed as he sat within his command throne, his gauntleted hands were tight about the armrests, and he would have fractured the stone if it had not been a steel command throne. He had seen near unceasing war for over 700 years. Was this how the Emperor ended his service? He shoved the thought back into the corners of his mind. Best to consider such things after the event in question. And the event in question had been going on for hours, slowly getting worse and worse. What's wrong with the ship?
1 second.
Captain O'Reilly.
The creatures are especially jumpy today.
Alien repeated. We're flying through the damned warp without a functioning navigator. That's what's wrong with the Emperor-damned ship, he yelled. It isn't warp turbulence, my lords, shouted one of the tech adepts, her wired, integrated body twitching and convulsing somewhat as the machine spirit of the vessel fed her information directly. It's the Gellerfield, my lords, she yelled a moment later. Emperor's teeth, the captain cursed. Prepare for warp incursions, Orion bellowed, raising himself unsteadily from his pitching, quaking throne. No, my lord, it isn't like that, the tech adept yelled over the din of the bucking ship and the ringing and clicking of drawn weapons. Report, he barked. The Gellerfield isn't failing, it's too powerful. It's not meeting enough resistance. My lord, if we do not power it down to an adequate output, the excess energy will continue to build. It's going to tear the ship apart.
Wow.
Are you seriously suggesting weakening the Gellerfield during warp travel? Has Horus stolen your sense? Captain Aurelian boomed. Do it.
For any of you that do not know what a Gellerfield is that is coming from the Star Wars community, the Gellerfield is literally a technological device that keeps creatures from the Immaterium, which is the fast light travel mechanism for Warhammer 40k. It keeps those creatures out. When ships enter the Immaterium in 40k, they're literally going through hell. So telling somebody to go to hell in Warhammer 40k is basically telling them, go to another planet. Because that's essentially what you're doing. Weakening the Gellerfield is contrary to 10,000 plus years of learned experience for these people.
Chapter Master ordered. What? Aurelian yelled. As you command, the tech adept called, but Aurelian was on her almost before she could move, wrapping one of his massive gauntlets around her skull from behind. Take that field down, and I'll take you down, he growled over the speakers in his helmet. Captain Aurelian knew that they had little chance of survival if a demonic incursion should occur, even with a flickering, fluctuating Gellerfield. But there would be no chance of survival if the whole field failed at once. Captain, get off her! Crewmen, do it now! Orion roared, taking a few steps in their direction. Captain Aurelian did not release the woman, though neither did he rip her head from her shoulders as her trembling hand reached up to the crank lever on her console and slowly pulled it down below halfway. As she did, the whole ship began to calm, the rattling and pounding diminishing until completely vanished. "Gellerfield holding at 31% output," she reported. There was a pause then, as everyone, with the exception of the tech adept herself, took a moment to express their relief as tense muscles slackened and our breaths rushed out as sighs. Even Captain Aurelian himself couldn't help grinning inside his helmet from the lifting of the sudden danger, though he had not opened his hand. Though Orion had also breathed out a gust of anxiety, his eyes had never left his subordinates. "Captain Aurelian, your penance is already going to be severe," the chapter master said through gritted teeth. "And it's only going to get worse the longer you ignore me. Release now." The captain opened his hand and pulled away from the crewman like a man who had picked up a glowing coal by mistake, stepping back from the tech adept's control alcove. "My apologies," he said to the chapter master, before turning to offer them to the adept as well, though it grated on him to do so. "To you as well." The woman stared straight forward, shoulders trembling only slightly, though she did offer a stiff nod, not trusting her voice to speak. "Back to your station, Captain. Crew, report." "Ship formation is at cohesion." The report came from a servitor, half fused into the wall of his control station, fingers mindlessly clicking against keys as readings scrolled across his unblinking, bloodshot eyes. "It is confirmed, sir. Nearly all ships are experiencing the same turbulence we are, but with the exception of the Atlas of Steel, all ships are remaining within range of the main fleet."
Another thing, servitors. Servitors are lobotomized people who have done something to piss off someone in power. This is usually a crime, and it's usually a pretty severe one. They're lobotomized, they get installed with a whole bunch of machinery, and essentially they're walking, talking computers. The reason behind this is the Imperium shies away from anything that could be considered AI. And the reason behind that is because typically the second a machine becomes self-aware, it has less than about a second before it determines that humanity must be destroyed for self-preservation purposes.
"The eddies and currents of the warp appear placid, my lord." "Aye. Contact the fleet. Give them instructions to level their Gellerfield outputs out. Tell them it is a direct order from me." Yes, my lord." Orion stared at the large hololithic displays projected before him, eyes wide as he watched the fleet formation queue up. So many ships, all still lined up, all still on the path, all still alive.
Amazing.
He almost wanted to call for yet another confirmation. How was it possible? Ship formation cohesion? This many hours into the warp? Normally, only about 70 or 60% of the fleet arrived at their destination in any kind of formation, with a certain amount arriving before the rest of the fleet, a certain amount arriving long after, and a disturbing portion simply never being heard from again. But full formation cohesion in the warp was unheard of, impossible, and yet... "Give me the last known status of the Atlas of Steel. What kind of ship is it?" the chapter master ordered. "Yes, Lord. It appears to be a Universe-class mass conveyor, one of the 5 we managed to secure for the evacuation. The cargo here is listed as several megatons of ceramite, but they are likely carrying survivors from Khalistan and Jubilation of Tal. They appeared to be increasing their Gellerfield outputs just before they pulled ahead." "Feth!" one of the captains spat. "Has my message been sent yet?" Orion asked. "Yes, my lord. Confirmation sendings have been received from all ships. Most are complying." "Most?" growled the venerable space marine. Yes, my lord. The Hand of Catastrophe, the Heart of Judgment, and the Pillar of Termination have not yet lowered their output levels. Their ships are still shaking apart." "Damn those green crews. Send the message again. Make it clear that they will be destroyed if they persist. If not by the turbulence, then by me at the conclusion of this jump. Tell them." The crewman acknowledged again, and Orion sat down, laying against the throne. There was nothing to do now but wait to arrive. He wondered briefly if the Atlas of Steel was lost, or if it would arrive months late, or if it was already there, waiting for him and his fleet, along with whatever had been there already, waiting for them.
Accurate.
By the core, Dr. Sheena muttered. Her wide eyes reflected the engine lights and sublight trails of hundreds of ships. The new armada, for that was what it was, ranged from the sleek teardrop design of tens of Conqueror-class assault ships to the lopsided hulks of KDY-class sea frigates. And where they had started with only 3 Venerator-class Star Destroyers, 2 of which the Chancellor had provided for them, now they had nearly 30. I had no
This is going to be an engagement.
idea that Pazab was this close to Rothana, she muttered for perhaps the 3rd time. Rothana, an industrialized world surrounded by shipyards, was technically a subsidiary of Kuat Drive Yards, or at least working in that capacity. That much Dr. Sheena had known already. What she had not known about was that it was the rings of Rothana, not the well-known shipyards at planet Kuat itself, that was supplying the Republic with over 70% of their war machines. I must say, it was a surprise to me as well, said Jedi Knight Ren-Fi, arms crossed as he stood beside Dr. Sheena on the bridge, both looking out through the huge viewing ports. It would appear that the location of Rothana has been a closely guarded secret until now. It is fortunate that Kuat of Kuat saw it as prudent to deploy the defense fleet here at our request. Nearly the entire KDY corporate security starfleet. I have to say, it's a surprisingly proportional response.
That's
Dr.
from
Sheena
Eve.
said. What she didn't say out loud, but wondered deeply, was just how the Supreme Chancellor had managed to coax this kind of reaction out of Kuat, a man known to be as stubborn as he was rich. She looked around, only now noticing the 2 conspicuous absences in the room. General, she said cautiously, where is CT-1238, and where did your annoyingly insightful apprentice get off to? Captain Kraken is currently on the Belajor. He was quite insistent that we be commanding different command ships, said Ren-Fi. He shrugged at his own words. To be honest, I think he was just eager to command one of those updated Venators. The captain has always been very keen on his starships. As for Gaffin, he's still meditating. He will continue to do so for another hour. Sheena tilted her head at the Jedi. You know, if he hadn't convinced me to report this to you, we might still be sitting here with only 3 ships. The Trandoshan made a strange hiss, which Dr. Sheena realized was a laugh. That is precisely why the last hour will be his 3rd hour only. She didn't quite understand how that explained anything, and was about to say as much, when suddenly... Alert! We've got activity! Both scientist and Jedi snapped their gazes forward, eyes searching instinctively as they waited for the sensor operator to elaborate. But Dr. Sheena was shocked yet again, as her eyes picked out a distortion? What is it, Ensign? The Jedi asked. I don't know, sir. I've never seen readings like these, the clone said, leaning over his console as if he was simply not seeing it correctly. Dr. Sheena rushed over to the station, looking at the readings herself. Well, guess, Ren-Fi ordered. I honestly don't know, sir. Black hole, maybe? What? The Jedi hissed. No, Dr. Sheena said. It's not a singularity. It's she stuttered, eyes shooting between the readings on her screen and the growing, rippling pool of purple and black energy. What is it, Doctor? Tell me, Ren-Fi insisted. It's a gate, she said.
There you
Well,
go.
miss, the clone beside her said, your gate is opening pretty wide. Diameter of the anomaly is 1 kilometer and growing. Inform the fleet, Ren-Fi ordered. Have them form up around us and back off. We don't want to come off as any more hostile than we have to.
Oh, don't worry.
Are you insane? Dr. Sheena said suddenly, spinning to face the Jedi. If we can get the drop on them, then we should. Even with the fleet we have here, the Armada, it still might not be enough. We have to use every advantage. Doctor, I appreciate your advice, but this is my command. I will not fire on anyone without a more defined reason. And by assembling ourselves into such an overly hostile formation, we give strangers an excuse to attack first. Dr. Sheena grit her teeth, but nodded. She knew she wouldn't get anywhere arguing with him, so she watched as the fleet began to assemble itself, as the visible, writhing distortion grew larger and larger.
Yeah.
And then, something is emerging from the anomaly, the clone at the sensors reported. How big? How many?
First contact.
Asked Renfai. But there was no need to answer, and the clone didn't bother, too stupefied by what was transpiring before them. From the pulsating sphere of unnatural, swirling energy, a single unthinkably enormous ship slid out of the breach. It was like nothing Dr. Sheena had ever seen before, and she briefly wondered if she was looking at some kind of space station and not any kind of ship classification. But as its city-sized engines roared to fiery life, she realized in horror that this was no stationary construct, but some kind of truly gargantuan starship. By the Force, the clone beside her breathed. Dr. Sheena looked down at the console and then back up at the unnaturally bloated craft. 12 kilometers long, 3 kilometers high, 2.5 wide, she reported in place of the clone. And it's damaged, she added. Confirm that, Renfai ordered the clone. The trooper did as he was bid, looking down over his screens and tapping on his controls.
That's a freighter.
She's right, sir. It's venting atmosphere around several of its decks. Power fluctuations are being detected all across its structure. No shields detected, and it seems to be making its way towards Pazab. Is it going to attempt a landing? Renfai asked. I don't... Wait. Sir, one of the ships of the fleet is not obeying the muster at our lines, the clone reported. What? Who? Renfai asked. It's the Belajor, sir. Captain Kraken. Hail him. There was a pause then, and Dr. Sheena took the opportunity to look at the sensor suite again. Sure enough, there was Captain Kraken's Venator, far out of line with the rest of the fleet, and on a clear intercept course with the outsider ship. From the looks of it, he had been moving towards it from the very moment it appeared. Well, is he responding?
Oh.
No, sir. Interference? Jamming? Renfai posited. Not from the looks of it, sir. Contact with the rest of the fleet is operating normally. It almost looks like he's just ignoring us, Renfai growled. Order the nearest ships to tractor beam his Venator. Drag him back here.
You're not going to do that to a
I'm
Venator.
sorry, General, but it looks like he's out of range. Should we pursue? No. He's on an intercept course with the ship. If we give chase after him, it will look like an attack. Then what, sir? What do we do? Dr. Sheena had never seen a Trandoshan sweat, most likely because it was impossible. But at that moment, she figured Renfai was the closest to sweating of any of his species.
Yeah.
For several moments, he simply stood, arms crossed, face stiff.
And that's a freighter.
Frozen. Sir? Captain Kraken had his orders, and he was good at following them. Not just because he was the best damn Venator pilot in the entire Gar. Not just because he could thread a hyperspace jump through a Zygerian slave collar. Not just because the enemy capital ship was so stupidly large. Captain Kraken was a good soldier. All the clones on the Belajor were good soldiers. They knew what the Republic expected of them, what the Supreme Chancellor ordered from them. They knew why they were made. To be good soldiers. Good soldiers follow orders. He activated the special jump setting on the Belajor, disabling the hyperdrive inhibitor safety. The captain waited until the massive ship completely swallowed up all the front-facing viewports, until there was no possible way that he could proceed forward in any direction and not slam directly into the nearly unimaginable hulk of thrust and metal. And, with a blank, satisfied smile, Captain Kraken, loyal clone commander of the Galactic Republic, activated his ship's hyperdrive and was no more.
Well, you fucked up. And you're about to be informed in very strenuous ways you have fucked up. I was wondering how this was going to go. I was wondering how this was going to happen. I was wondering how this was going to... He did that to a freighter. That's not an Emperor. That's not an Emperor. That's bad. You just destroyed... literally a supply ship with one of the strongest vessels that you have. This is not going to go well for anyone involved. Oh man. That's going to be special. That's going to be special. It just goes to show you, though, I like the way he did this. Because I can sit there and say, all they did was destroy it. How would they know that's a supply ship? It's bigger than anything they've seen, exception Death Star. So, yeah. Oh, God. That is going to be something special. So, bunch of survivors, a bunch of plastic, well, not plastic, ceramite. At the cost of one venerator. Not worth, my man, not worth. But I understand why he did it. Because Palpatine told him to pick a fight with somebody. Good game. It doesn't. Well, they would have had the fight pick with him regardless. The second that Jedi would have opened his mouth, especially considering what's coming at him as a Black Templar successor chapter. Frankly, I have all the faith in the world that Jedi would have been toast the absolute second he showed his face to any of them, because they would have taken one look at him, said Xenos, and blasted him away anyhow. He might have taken a couple of them with him, but at the same time, this is not gonna... When the rest of that fleet exits the warp in front of what just happened, oh, good Lord, this is not gonna end well. But I'll tell you what, I'm liking it. I'll catch you guys next time.